How do we live freely in today's world? Does freedom mean having no responsibilities, or is there something deeper to it? The truth is, living freely begins in the mind, not in the external circumstances. Most people are trapped in their own thoughts, fears, and desires. We often mistake the idea of freedom with the ability to do whatever we want, without realizing that true freedom is freedom from the constant chatter of the mind. It is the freedom from worry, from anxiety, from the need to seek validation. But how do we attain this freedom? How do we live with clarity and focus, especially when there is so much happening around us? Freedom starts with understanding the nature of the mind. The mind is like a storm, constantly shifting, never still. It's filled with memories of the past, anxieties about the future, and distractions that pull us in every direction. But what if we could observe these thoughts without getting caught up in them? What if we could simply watch the mind, as one watches clouds floating by in the sky, without reacting? This is the essence of true freedom, the ability to observe without judgment, to be present without attachment. When you live in this state of awareness, you stop living in the prison of your thoughts. You stop being overwhelmed by external expectations, and instead, you begin to live in harmony with your own nature. You start to work not because you have to, but because it flows naturally from you. There is no division between you and your work. It becomes an extension of who you are. This is the first key to living freely, not being controlled by the mind or by the external world, but being in tune with your own inner rhythm. But how do you focus on your work, especially in a world filled with distractions? Focus is not something that you can simply force. It arises naturally when you have clarity. Think about a time when you were completely absorbed in something, a task, a hobby, a conversation. In that moment, you weren't thinking about anything else. You were fully immersed in the present moment. That's the kind of focus we're talking about. When you are fully present with what you are doing, you don't need to try hard to focus. It happens on its own. The challenge, however, is that most of us are constantly pulled away from the present moment. We are either thinking about the past or worrying about the future. This constant mental noise makes it hard to focus on what's in front of us. But if you want to truly excel at your work, it's crucial to train your mind to be in the present. Start by observing your thoughts. Notice when you are distracted, and gently bring your attention back to the task at hand. With time, this practice will become natural. Focus is not a skill you need to develop. It's a state of being that you cultivate through awareness. Living freely also means understanding the importance of simplicity. The more complex our lives become, the harder it is to focus. We clutter our minds with unnecessary information, unnecessary desires, and unnecessary goals. True freedom comes when we learn to let go of the things that don't serve us. When you simplify your life, you create space for what truly matters. This could mean decluttering your physical space, letting go of unnecessary possessions, or even letting go of relationships and habits that drain your energy. When your life is simple, your mind becomes clear, and with that clarity comes focus. But simplicity doesn't just apply to your external world. It's also about how you approach your work. Work is often seen as something we do to escape from life. But what if work itself could be the most profound expression of who we are? What if work became a meditation, an act of creativity, a flow of energy that connects us with the present moment? When we stop seeing work as a means to an end, and start seeing it as a way to express ourselves, it becomes a source of joy and fulfillment. Think about a time when you did something you loved, something that made you lose track of time. Maybe it was writing, painting, cooking, or solving a problem. In that moment, there was no separation between you and the task. You were one with it. This is the state of true focus. When work becomes an expression of your inner creativity, it ceases to feel like a burden. It becomes a natural extension of your being. The key is to approach work with the right mindset. When you approach it with curiosity, with a sense of discovery, you naturally become absorbed in it. There is no pressure, no anxiety. You are simply doing what you love, with no expectation of a reward. In that space, the work itself becomes the reward. You stop working for approval, for success, or for money. You start working because it brings you joy, because it allows you to express your true nature. But what about the distractions of the world? In today's society, we are bombarded with distractions every moment. Social media, notifications, advertisements, and endless demands on our time. How do we stay focused in such an environment? The answer lies in prioritizing what is truly important. It's easy to get caught up in the noise, but when you have a clear sense of purpose, distractions lose their power. When you know what matters to you, the constant pull of the external world becomes insignificant. It's not about avoiding distractions, but about creating a life that aligns with your values and purpose. If your work is meaningful to you, you will naturally find the focus to stay committed to it. The key is to not let the distractions take away your energy and attention. Instead, focus on what you can control: your thoughts, your actions, your intentions. Living freely also means letting go of the need for approval. Many of us live our lives seeking validation from others. We want to be liked, to be accepted, to be praised. But this need for validation traps us in a cycle of dependency. When we live for the approval of others, we lose touch with who we truly are. We become slaves to external expectations. True freedom comes when you no longer need others' approval. When you are content with yourself, when you are confident in your own worth, you stop seeking validation. You start living for yourself, not for anyone else. This doesn't mean that you become selfish or indifferent to others. On the contrary, when you are free from the need for approval, you are able to give freely, without expecting anything in return. You are able to work with passion, not because you want recognition, but because the work itself is meaningful to you. When you are not dependent on others' opinions, you are free to follow your own path, to work in your own way, and to create something truly unique. Finally, remember that true freedom is not something you achieve in the future, but something you experience in the present. It is not about escaping your responsibilities or avoiding work. It's about being fully present with whatever you are doing, without attachment, without resistance. When you live in this way, work becomes a form of freedom. It becomes a way to express your creativity, your passion, and your love for life. So, how do you live freely and focus on your work? By becoming aware of the present moment, by simplifying your life, by letting go of distractions and attachments, and by finding joy in the work itself. When you live this way, work becomes not a burden, but a source of liberation, and in that liberation, you will find true freedom,